It's been a moment. This is gonna be a fun video. So I posted that last video of the day of my life, and then I blinked and it's December, so been AWOL, still figuring out a pretty good balance to life, and it's been a while, but I'm back with a video that's been requested, which is strange because that means that there are people who watch my content and want more of my content, and that's a strange idea to me. EPIK versus Hagwon versus international school. So being a teacher, whether English teacher or subject teacher, is one of the ways you can come to Korea. Now, I have done EPIK and I currently work at an international school. I have never worked at a Hagwon, so I cannot speak to the Hagwon experience. And even my EPIK experience was kind of like not the same because I was actually placed at an English center, not at a public school, which if you want to know more about that, I'll throw a card up linking to my day in the life at an English center video, but I will talk more about that when I get to that portion of the video. But those are your three options for being a teacher in Korea. EPIK and Hagwon, you are specifically an English teacher, whereas at an international school, you are going to be either a subject teacher or a homeroom teacher. Now, getting into it. With EPIK. EPIK stands for English Program in Korea. It is a government-run program, and there are actually different versions of it depending on what part of Korea you're in. So EPIK kind of spans the whole country, but different provinces might have different programs they do. Like I think one of them is like GEPIK, which is Gyeonggi English Program in Korea, so that would be specifically in Gyeonggi-do province. Now, with EPIK, you are placed in a public Korean school, or like I said before, you're placed in an English center like I was. But English centers are run by public schools, so it's still a lot of the same things. The requirements for going through the EPIK program are you must have a bachelor's degree. Now, it doesn't have to be in English or teaching or anything like that. You can have a bachelor's degree in anything and still be able to be an EPIK teacher. On top of that, you must have a TEFL certification, or if you have a valid teaching license, that can be used instead. So I did not actually get my TEFL certificate to be an EPIK teacher because I have a teaching license. So either works. Now, some benefits of coming through EPIK. Don't kick the stand. There we go, move the dog. Some of the benefits of EPIK are your housing is either provided or they'll give you a stipend if you decide you want different housing. Boop. Lay down. 엎드려. You get housing provided or a housing stipend. Your vacation time, now from what I understand, this has changed since I was in the program. When I was in the program, I got 26 vacation days, which was more than the public school teachers because English centers are different, which is like the catchphrase of English centers is like anytime we would try and figure things out, all we got told was English centers are different. But I had 26 vacation days when I was in the EPIK program. You are guaranteed a co-teacher. Now, how each school does it or like how that works, what dynamic is very different from person to person. However, you will have a co-teacher in the room with you to help you teach and help translate things for your kids if they are confused. one of kind of the downsides of EPIK is that you don't get your choice of city. When you apply, you can put in the application like, oh, I want to be in Seoul, I want to be in Busan, I want to be here. And they will take that into consideration, but ultimately you get placed wherever you are needed. So I had put Seoul for my number one choice city, but I got placed in Gwangju, Gwangju Gwangyok시 in Jeollanam-do, not the Gwangju in Gyeonggi-do, which I loved my time in Gwangju. Great city. Would love to. No battery. It's a great city. Would love to go back, but I didn't even know Gwangju existed until I learned that I was getting placed there. So keep that in mind. And you need an E2 visa to go through EPIK. And I bring that up because there are two different types of visas you can teach on in Korea, but for EPIK, you are required to do an E2 visa. Now, if you want to come through EPIK, there are two ways to go about it. You can go through a recruiter or you can apply directly to EPIK. I applied directly to EPIK. I didn't go through a recruiter or anything like that. And I found the process to be pretty straightforward. I'm not going to say easy because it was very, it was a very long process for me. And I had to redo part of my application, but it is very straightforward. There was no like surprises at any sort of turn. So I'm sure a recruiter would be nice and helpful, but I didn't see it as like necessary. So those are your two options. A Hagwon. Hagwon is a private after-school academy that kids in Korea go to. Now, the biggest difference between like public school and Hagwon is that public schools are obviously under the jurisdiction of the government since they are public schools. So my English center answered to the Gwangju Metropolitan Office of Education, and whatever school you would be at through EPIK will answer to your city's governing Office of Education. Hagwons are private businesses and not accredited schools, so your business will not answer directly to the Office of Education. However, there are some laws that they still have to follow, such as what times they are allowed to operate and what subjects they are allowed to teach to what age students. So like, for example, you can't teach kindergartners English at 9 a.m. because in Korea, legally, kids are not supposed to start learning English in school until grade 3. So if they go to kindergarten during the day, unless it is a specified English kindergarten, they are not meant to be learning English as a subject or anything like that in school. So most Hagwons, you're going to work like afternoons and evenings as opposed to mornings and afternoons like you do in a public school. But to teach at a Hagwon, you need a bachelor's degree. You are not required to have a TEFL to teach at a Hagwon because it's private. They can have whatever requirements they want. I'm sure it would be helpful, especially if you are not a teacher and don't have a teaching degree. But most places, I think, are not going to necessarily require it. The perks of the Hagwon are, once again, you either have provided housing or a housing stipend. And from what I understand, Hagwons usually pay a little bit better than EPIK does. Obviously, that's depending on like what pay level you come in at and what Hagwon you're at. But average pay is usually a little bit better at Hagwons. But on the flip side, Hagwons usually have less vacation time than EPIK. Whereas I had 26 vacation days when I was in EPIK. My friend who worked at a Hagwon last year only had 10 vacation days during the year. So it has slightly different perks, slightly different cons. You might have a co-teacher at a Hagwon, however, it's not a guarantee. Most of my friends at Hagwons do not have co-teachers, but some places do have co-teachers. It just depends. And with a Hagwon, you will get your choice of city because you are applying directly to a business. You're not applying to a program that places you somewhere. So if you say, no, I want to work in Busan, I'm only going to apply at Hagwons in Busan, you are guaranteed to get a placement in Busan. You're not guaranteed to a placement, but like if you get a job, you're definitely going to be in the city you want to be in. Once again, with Hagwons, you can either apply directly to a Hagwon or you can go through a recruiter. I feel like with Hagwons, I can't speak to what is easier or what is the best route for applying there because I haven't done it. That's up to you to do your own research and make your own decisions. I can't say anything about that. It's I haven't been there. All right, international schools. So I currently work as a grade 5 homeroom teacher at an international school. An international school is a private school that usually caters to an international student body, not a specifically Korean student body. There are some Korean kids who go to international schools as well. It just depends. However, my school's main language is English. I teach in English. We all speak English to each other. All of our meetings and everything are held in English. I don't know what my dog is staring at. She's like, she won't settle. But, whew. Yes, sorry. International school, private school. Most international schools are going to be English-speaking schools, but there are some other schools, like there is the French international school, and I'm assuming they speak French at that international school. So it depends on where you want to work. Now, the thing about international schools, you must have a valid teaching license to work at an international school. And this is the biggest difference between EPIK and Hagwon versus international school. Because I have had some conversations with some EPIK teachers who are very upset that they cannot work at an international school. And they always say like, oh, well, I'm a teacher. I should be like, I can teach for EPIK. I should be able to teach in an international school. And I mean this next sentence in the nicest way possible. You're not a real teacher in the eyes of the Korean government. Now, obviously there are people with teaching licenses who go through EPIK. I was one of them. There are people who have master's degrees who come through EPIK. They're like, I'm not invalidating anybody's education or experience. However, if you come through EPIK, in the eyes of the Korean government, you are not a real teacher. That is why you have a co-teacher in EPIK. You are legally not allowed. Hey! Don't act like you weren't just trying to eat my clothes. Go lay down. This dog. Sorry. If you come through EPIK, you are not a real teacher in the eyes of the Korean government. That is why you have a co-teacher. That is why you are not allowed to be left alone with kids. I say not allowed. I know what happens in EPIK, but like legally you're not supposed to be left alone with kids. That's why you don't handle like grade books, or like why you don't have like parent meetings, is that you are not legally a teacher for these kids. You are someone who works with a teacher, but legally you are not considered a teacher. To work at an international school, you must be legally considered a teacher, and in order to do that, you must have a teaching license. So that is the biggest thing. If you do not have a valid teaching license, then you probably won't be able to teach at an international school. Now, there are ways to get your teaching license without having a degree in education. There are programs in the US where you can, if you are a specialty in your field and you work something out with the government. I'm not exactly sure how that works. I've never done it, obviously. But you can get a teaching license without having a teaching degree, but you must be a licensed teacher in whatever country you're coming from. On top of that, every school is going to have slightly different requirements. Some schools require you to have 5 years experience. Some schools require 2 years experience. Some schools would really like for you to have a master's degree. Some schools require you to have a Google certification. Every school is different. And so you need to figure out what you can apply for, what schools you want to work for. You also, it's not an official requirement, but it's an unofficial requirement. You should have teaching experience in your home country. It's not required, however, rude. I'm trying to film a video. You should have some teaching experience in your home country. It looks better on a resume if you have teaching experience, and for visa purposes, it looks better as well. And I will get to that at the end of the video where I talk about E2 versus E7 visa. So it's not an official requirement, but it's kind of an unofficial requirement to have some sort of teaching experience. Now, not everybody at my school has teaching experience in their home countries, but it looks better if you do, and it's a bit easier to get hired if you do have that. Your school will provide you with either housing or a housing stipend. You will get vacation time, which is like standard vacation time for school teachers. My vacation time is 10 weeks paid vacation. I get 6 weeks summer vacation, 3 weeks winter vacation, and 1 week of spring vacation. Again, every school is a little bit different, but it's around 10 weeks paid vacation time at the schools. You might have a co-teacher, you might not have a co-teacher. I don't have a co-teacher, but some schools really like the co-teaching model. Again, varies from school to school. And you will, like, it's your choice of city because you apply directly to a school, so you know what city you're going to should you get hired at wherever you apply. Now, the biggest difference, you are on an E7 visa, and I will explain E2 versus E7 here shortly. But also at an international school. So like I said, I teach grade 5 homeroom. What that means is when I taught in EPIK, I only taught English classes. I taught grades 3 through 6, English experience camps, and then I taught after school classes to grades 2 through 6. But I was only teaching English as a foreign language. As a grade 5 homeroom teacher, I teach math, science, social studies, language arts, reading, and writing. That's the last one, writing. So I'm responsible for all of the core subjects, and then they have Korean, life skills, art, and PE as special classes as well. I don't teach those, but I am responsible for teaching the core subjects. And then I say science and social studies. My school is an international baccalaureate school, which means I don't teach science and social studies as topics. I teach unit of inquiry, but the IB is a whole nother can of worms. So I'm not going to go too much into that. Which is another reason you have to have your teaching license, because you are teaching the core subjects. You have to know how to teach those. Whereas in EPIK, it's usually you just follow the textbook. It's pretty laid out for you. You can kind of like pick and choose games, but it's pretty cut and dry if you're in EPIK. Now, E2 versus E7 visa. So an E2 visa is the one that you are on if you're here through EPIK or if you are at a Hagwon, or some international schools, you do have like ELL programs. And in that case, you can be on an E2 visa as well if you are solely an English teacher. An E2 visa is an English teaching visa. Specifically an English teaching visa, you cannot teach other subjects if you're on an E2 visa. To get this visa, you must have a bachelor's degree from an accredited university. And an accredited university just means that your university is from one of the following countries: USA, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, England, Ireland, or South Africa. You must also be from you must also be from one of these countries. That's what it said on the website, but it's also kind of iffy because the next one said you must be a native English speaker or have studied in English from grade 7 up and lived in one of the above countries for at least 10 years. So they make it sound like you can be a foreign national but as long as you lived in one of those countries for 10 years and speak English fluently, you're okay. I'm not 100% sure. Once again, wasn't me. I was born and raised in the US, so I'm just telling you what the website says. And then the documents you have to apply for an E2 visa. You must have the application. You must have a passport photo from no earlier, or sorry, I said that weird. You must have a passport photo that is no older than 6 months. So might need to get some new passport photos. You need a passport. And then anytime you turn in applications and things like this, you have to turn in your actual passport and a photocopy, a color photocopy of your photo page in your passport. So you need to make copies of everything. You need a certificate of confirmation / notice of appointment, which is just basically saying like, you got hired. So like when EPIK accepted me, I got a notice of appointment that basically was an official document to tell the Korean government, hey, she needs to come work. You need a work contract. So if you come through EPIK, they will give you kind of like a placeholder contract to help you get your visa. And then once you get to Korea and they get everything sorted, then you will sign an actual work contract. You need an apostilled university degree. It must be apostilled, and apostilling something is like notarizing, but more, because it has to be notarized to get apostilled. I still am not entirely sure what that whole process entailed. I just know I sent my diploma, my transcripts, and then a check for like $15 to my university. And then a week later, I got a letter back from the state, and it was like 17 papers stapled together with a bunch of stamps saying that it was apostilled. So check with whoever your apostilling agency is. If you're from the United States, your university diploma must be apostilled at the state level. So check with your where did I go? Why can I not think of the word? If you're from the US, you have to check with your state's Secretary of State. Holy cow, that's what I meant. Check with the Secretary of State. They're the ones who have to issue apostilles to figure out how that whole thing goes down. Or you can ask your university as well. I had emailed my university and they were the ones who told me how to make sure everything got done correctly to get apostilled. You also need any supporting documents. So if you're going through EPIK, that's your TOEFL. For me, it was a teaching license since I was submitting that in place of a TOEFL, but any other documents you might need to prove anything. You must have a background check as well. So again, if you're from the United States, I can only speak for US. I don't know how other countries necessarily do this. If you are from the US, it must be a federal criminal background check, and it must be apostilled at the national level. So for my background check, like I had to ship it. I had to, like when I got my FBI background check done, I got emailed the results. I printed those out, and then I had to put that, and then a letter of request, and then of course money, because nothing is free, in an envelope, and then send that to Washington, D.C., and then they apostilled it and then sent it back to me. And then you must have the fee for the visa, because once again, nothing's free. So you have to pay for the visa. I do not remember how much I paid. This was a long time ago. Not a long time ago, but like it was long enough ago that I do not remember. And clearly it wasn't expensive enough that I remember. So it doesn't break the bank. Now, an E7 visa. E7 visa is a foreign national of special ability visa. Basically, this visa says we had to hire this person out of the country for these reasons. So when you apply for an E7 visa, your school will have to submit a document stating why they have to hire you instead of like a Korean national. But if the school hires you, like you shouldn't have a problem getting the E7 visa. So to be eligible for an E7 visa, you must have one of these three things: either a master's degree in the field you're working in, a bachelor's plus 2 or more years of experience in the field you are working in, or 5 years of experience in the field you are working in. So that's one of the reasons that most international schools really like you to have a master's, because then you are for sure eligible for an E7 visa. However, I have a bachelor's plus 2 years experience teaching in my home country, actually 2.5 years in my home country, plus a year in the Korean school, and now I had a half year, and so now I'm working on my 5th year. Like, I have enough experience to be eligible for an E7 visa. But that's basically proving that you're of special ability, like you have the education/experience to count. The documents you need to apply for an E7 visa are, once again, the application, the passport photo, and your passport. Those are all the same. You must have a work contract from your school, and then you must also have special documents from your school. Do not ask me what these documents are. I do not know. When I was applying for my visa, the school sent me a packet of documents. They're all entirely in Korean. I don't know what any of them said. I just went to the visa office and went, here you go. So your school will send you documents that you have to submit as well. You also need a teaching license, and it doesn't technically have to be apostilled. However, I highly, highly, highly recommend that you do get it apostilled, because I ran into this issue with getting my visa where I gave them my teaching license and they said, oh, this is a copy, we need the original document. And I said, no, that is the original document. My state does not do physical licenses anymore. They only do PDFs. And they said, oh, well, then this needs to be apostilled. So I had to get my teaching license apostilled at the state level, because the state is the one who issues them. And it was just one giant headache that I wish I didn't have to go through. So I highly recommend just getting your teaching license apostilled, whether you think it needs to be or not, because I would have rather had things apostilled that didn't need to be than the way it ended up working out for me. You must also have a university degree, or like a copy of your degree. If you have a degree, like I said, you can get a job with just 5 years experience in the field. But I had to submit my university degree. This time it did not need to be apostilled, because the main document that my visa was approved on was my teaching license. With an E2 visa, your main document is your university degree. So that's why my teaching license didn't have to be apostilled the first time, but my university degree didn't. My university degree did. Now with the E7 visa, it's good to prove that I have, because that was me saying I have a bachelor's and 2 years of experience, so I had to prove that I had a bachelor's degree. Also, any documents that your school requires from you. So like my school requires a background check, so I had to figure out how to get a background check done in Korea. That was fun. I had no idea what I was doing, and I finally had to call my secretary when I was trying to get this background check done. I went into the police office. I went up to the little window and I called my secretary and I said, can you please talk to them? And I handed my phone over to the little ajumas who were behind the window doing background checks. And then after 20 minutes of them talking to the secretary on my phone, they were like, okay, come with us. And we finally got that figured out. But any documents your school requires from you. And then, of course, the visa fee. So you have to pay money for your visa. And if you are already in Korea, you must also hand over your ARC. So for the ARC part, when I got my E7 visa, I was already in Korea on an E2 visa. So I had to hand over my ARC so they could get me a new one, which means for about a month there, I was walking around Korea without an ARC, and I did not like that. I did not like that at all. I felt very weird not having that in my wallet. But on your ARC, it says like what type of visa you're on. So if you get it switched over, you will have to hand it over so they can switch everything over, and then all of that stuff. So if you are in Korea already, ARC is also required. That is the difference between E2 and E7 visa. I hope this video was helpful and informative. I don't know, maybe this will find the target audience. I'm not used to doing sit-down videos like this. This is quite strange, and now I have to listen to myself as I go back and edit this. This will be interesting. If you're still here, you made it all the way through the video. Thanks for sticking around. I have no idea what type of content I can tell you to expect coming up. It's travel stuff, not travel stuff, I'm staying in Seoul, but like stuff around Seoul / teaching content. I like to make teaching content, but I also kind of want to make like Korea content. So I think it's going to be very 50-50 split on this channel coming up until I figure out like what my niche is. But yeah, thanks for sticking around. If you felt like this was helpful, let me know in the comments. I really like interacting with people in the comments. Yeah. All right. See you next time. No, don't get out. Maybe you should get out. My school as well, and most other international